we've been able to move through the permitting process rather quickly for drilling in Wyoming in Shirley Central. We were about 2 months from submitting that permit to getting that. We now have that permit in hand. So we'll be looking hopefully at those same sort of timelines here. And, that allows us to get out there pretty quickly. And again, once we do that, we think there's the potential to, take that drill data, which is almost instantaneous once you log it, and be able to put together a new revised 43-101. So the potential to have a compliant resource in the early stages of next year is definitely a very realistic target for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a quick reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy any shares, products, or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is Drew Zimmerman, president for Noble Plains Uranium, a uranium company with assets in Wyoming. Drew, great to have you back. Welcome.
Yeah, great to be back on the show with you, Lucian. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Drew, let's jump right away on the news release from Thursday and closing the option agreement to acquire 80% interest in the Duck Creek project in Wyoming. The option closing coincides with the newly completed NI 43 101 technical report. Drew, tell me more about this, especially about the numbers from the report, exploration target, grades, more. Please.
Yeah, there's a lot that came out in that news release. It was, important for us to be able to get that out. One, it marked the closing of that transaction, and funny enough, I guess it was 2 months ago we did our first interview, and that was on our acquisition of Shirley Central. So, here we are 2 months later, closing another project acquisition, which I think is a key part of our strategy. But to get back to Duck Creek, it is going to be our main project going forward. It's an incredibly strong project, and the key thing for us was it had 4,000 historic drill holes in it. So to be able to acquire that project and the data that goes with that, that is roughly $16 million if you were to go out and do that amount of drilling on that project today. So a big leg up for us to be able to take that in and be able to move quickly off that. And with the 43-101, I think the important thing for us that was a big benchmark for value was being able to bookmark that exploration target. So the exploration target is 1.4 million to 5.4 million pounds from that historical drilling between historically mined pits. So we know there's a very contiguous 3-mile trend that has a lot of uranium in it. And that for us was a big piece to be able to release to the market. We talked about the 4,000 holes before. We knew it was mineralized before, but now we're able to put a number on it. And for us, having that data and having modeled it over the last couple of months, we are very confident that we're, guiding to the top end of that target range. With the potential to be able to expand it as well. So again, it was a big release because it's able to put a number on that project for the market that we can now publicly talk about as of Thursday of last week. So it was definitely a big step for us.
Yeah, it was a big press release, and I want to unpack a few things out of it. Given the conceptual nature of these estimates, what steps is your company, Noble, taking to confirm and potentially expand this target into compliant mineral resource?
Yeah, again, and part of our strategy is taking on projects that have, this amount of historic data, and that's a big piece for us is, if we wanted to go in and, only confirm what this exploration target is, we could probably do that with as little as 20 to maybe 30 drill holes. So very small number of drill holes. And that would get this into a compliant resource. Again, it would, depend which level, whether, measured, indicated, or inferred. And again, the number of drill holes will impact that. And what we think is extra sort of potential on this is to be able to have some more drill holes on top of that that have the potential to expand areas outside of the mineralized zone where, again, we have some drill data, just not good enough drill data to even have in the 43101, but where we know it is mineralized and being able to upgrade some of those areas. We think there's a lot of areas to be able to expand on this mineralized target zone as well. So being able to get out there with a single drill program and be able to not only confirm where this exploration target is, but with the potential to expand it is, very compelling. And again, a single drill program. So, again, we've had the data for a while. You'll see in short order that we'll be working on our drill permit. We'll let the market know when we submit that. Again, we've been able to move through the permitting process rather quickly for drilling in Wyoming in Shirley Central. We're about 2 months from submitting that permit to getting that. We now have that permit in hand. So we'll be looking hopefully at those same sort of timelines here. And, that allows us to get out there pretty quickly. And again, once we do that, we think there's the potential to, take that drill data, which is almost instantaneous once you log it, and be able to put together a new revised 43101. So the potential to have a compliant resource in the early stages of next year is definitely a very realistic target for us.
That's excellent. You addressed the objectives of this program. However, can you tell me more about the timeline of this drilling program? And do you plan to test Fort Union formation, the untested one, more than the other one? The other one is Wasatch, if I'm not mistaken. How can
Yes.
you give me some
Yeah.
color on that?
Yeah, no, exactly. So for drilling, like I say, it is permit dependent. So we will be working through that process, and again, think we can get through that rather quickly. And our intent will be to be drilling once we receive that permit. So being able to have things geared up and ready to go. We're fortunate that we do have the permit for Shirley Central, so we can already start to line up some of the contractors that we would use for drilling, and play it by ear a little bit where those drillers actually go, which project we put them to work on. So hopefully, that's going to be sort of mid-fall would be the timeline to be able to have a drill turning on one of our projects. And again, hopefully that would be Duck Creek. And I think you touched on a very important thing there as well. In the news release, it got sort of moved down because there was so much data there, but everything that we're looking at right now is in the Wasatch Formation. So that's about, from ground level to about 400 feet deep. And, that alone for us, given the economics of this project, make a lot of sense, especially if we think we can expand it. But it's very important to realize that when you're looking at, Cameco's project, Smith Island, just to the south of us, we've got 3 other projects by UEC within 30 kilometers of us, GTI. So we've got 56 million pounds of compliant resource within a 30-kilometer radius of our project. And, that is almost entirely in the Fort Union formation. And the Fort Union formation on Duck Creek has never been tested because when this historical drilling was getting done, they were looking for shallow open pit uranium mineralization. So that's definitely a target zone that we want to look at. As we set up our drill program, the number one goal is obviously to confirm the 3-mile trend that is there and then potentially expand it. And we will look and decide if, that is sort of the bulk and sort of what needs to be accomplished in drill program number 1. And if we would then have a secondary drill program that can go out and focus on the deeper formations, again, because we're right along the trend of, if you look at where the UEC and Cameco projects are, we think there's a great potential there. And I mean, like I said, this project checked every box and made a lot of sense without the Fort Union formation. So it is, significant blue sky, because if we hit any sort of mineralization there that can be, in the amount of pounds that some of our neighboring projects have, it would be a significant change in valuation for this project for us. So definitely something that we'll be looking forward to and explaining as we continue to go forward.
Well said and agreed. You mentioned Shirley Central Project. You secured drill permit for Shirley Central Project just 2 months after acquiring option on the property. What factors contribute to this rapid permitting process, and how does this reflect Wyoming's regulatory environment for uranium exploration?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I've mentioned before, when you're doing business in a jurisdiction that is used to doing business and the type of business that you're doing, it tends to be a well-oiled machine. And that's, one of the things that really I will say is good about working in a state like Wyoming. They're used to uranium mining, they're used to the processes that we're going through. Everything that we're doing is nothing new. The other thing that did help us was obviously we had a prior drill program in Shirley East, really just kilometers or miles away from Shirley Central. So being able to piggyback on some of the relationships and everything that we had built up from that program allowed us to move very quickly on Shirley Central. But again, as we've gone through a couple permitting processes, we're working with a lot of the same people, and we think we can carry that momentum into permitting on Duck Creek as well, even though it's a slightly different, area of the state. But again, a process that we think is, very a well-worn path in Wyoming, and again, that's what allows us to move very quickly, and part of the reason why we choose certain districts to be working in.
Definitely. Let's stick to Shirley Central drill program objectives. The 2020 hole confirmation drill program targets 6 high-density zones identified through historical data and aerial mapping. Can you elaborate on the specific goals of this program, particularly how it aims to confirm historical mineralization and advance toward an initial NI 43-101?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the good thing about this project is, again, it's right next to a tremendous asset in Ur-Energy's Shirley Basin. They've got 8.8 million pounds at an average grade of 0.23%. They're currently right now constructing their satellite ISR facility there, so there will be infrastructure built right on the border of our project. So for us, we were able to look at the historical data and really hone in on the drill density. So, they did large scale sort of fence drilling, and when they found mineralization, they drilled it out quite intently. And it's those areas that we're targeting to go in and, make sure that those mineralized areas that we have targeted actually have the mineralization that we think could be there or should be there. And I think it's important to note that I think Ur-Energy with their historic data, and again, they had a much broader data set that they had acquired on those holes, but they put about 13 or 14 holes really to prove out their entire fab deposit that they're now building that project on. So, you can go in, and as long as you're confirming what this historical drill logs are saying, you can move things rather quickly. So for us, being able to confirm that these mineralized target zones are mineralized and at the grades that we think they could be at, we think we have the potential to be able to move the project along, very, very quickly, especially if we're able to get more of the historical data that, again, we've got bits and pieces of it, but if we can pull more of it together, that along with a 22 hole program could be enough to get us towards a 43-101. But again, the main thing is, making sure that we've got confidence in, again, a smaller 22 hole program showing that there is mineralization there and showing what grade that mineralization could be. Because again, the good thing for us with this project is it doesn't need to be a 5 to 10 million pound standalone facility or project because it needs its own facility and so on and so forth. With the infrastructure getting built out, we think it could be very economic in the several million pound range, and that would be a huge addition for us, given the cost of acquiring and the cost of the drilling would be very significant value add for us if we can add serious pounds in the ground on that project, given the infrastructure that's right nearby.
Yeah, infrastructure nearby, that is important. Ur-Energy is your neighbor, just like you said. Do you see any synergies going forward with Ur-Energy? I mean, they are a producer. They have full infrastructure, producing infrastructure over there. Do you see some collaboration going forward with the companies surrounding you?
Yeah, I mean, it would make a lot of sense. I mean, they've got their satellite facility that they're building at Shirley and their Lost Creek central processing facility right there already, a producing company. 8.8 million pounds is a very good resource. I'm sure it would make a lot of sense if they could add more throughput to a facility. So, again, that's just an advantage that we have given the location of that. And the other thing is just is confidence in mineralization. Wanting to know that your area is mineralized, and if there's historic pits that are on either side of these target zones that we're working on, and an entire target zone that's now being built out by Energy, just adds to our confidence of what is on this project. And again, the economics going forward just look that much different if we're able to prove that out and start to have some conversations with Energy. And again, we're also some of these project claims are surrounded by Uranium Energy Company as well. So it's not just Energy that's in this area. Two very big players. So Energy is obviously the one building out a facility currently. But yes, having conversations as we bring this project along and prove out what is there would definitely make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Let's take a longer term view. You emphasize delivering meaningful pounds in the ground to build leverage for shareholders. Can you outline the key milestones you plan to achieve in the, let's say, next 12, 18 months to drive shareholder value?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's important to also look back. Only 2 months ago we did our introduction interview, and we were sort of outlining that thesis. We had Shirley East, we had just added Shirley Central. Now since we've also added Duck Creek. So I think for us, the roadmap going forward is really being able to look at taking those projects and digesting them. So again, a drill program set for Shirley Central, looking to be able to move those towards 43,101 pounds in the ground, at the very least confirm that there is strong mineralization there, and that will be through the end of this year. And then as we go into drilling on Duck Creek again, that's a much nearer term because we have all the historic data to be able to prove out that exploration target range of 1.4 to 5.4 million pounds and say, here's our now compliant resource if we rework a 43,101. And we think that can happen, rather quickly after the drill program. So again, that's likely the beginning of next year, so long as we get out and drill it at the end of this year. And then the other piece of it is an additional project pipeline. Again, we didn't even have Duck Creek the last time we spoke, so that was a new addition. And we're continuing to evaluate projects that, fit into this roadmap and check the boxes that we want to see checked, where, they're in good districts, they have some historical workings, so we're not guessing on the geology and the mineralization being there. We know it's there. It's just going out and proving how much is there. And I think that's going to be the key thing for us, is how we continue to acquire, digest, and move pounds onto a compliant sort of ledger rather quickly and rather cost effectively. I think that's sort of the key thing. And as we continue to do that, and I've stated before, I'd love to see us have over 20 million compliant pounds in the ground in sort of an 18 to 24 month period. And that's an aggressive target to go after, but I think it's one that is reasonable. And again, I think, if in the first quarter, first half of next year, we can move compliant pounds onto that ledger from both Duck Creek and Shirley Central, that is a very good start in a very short period of time. And again, we're excited about being able to bring some other projects into the fold that would, again, follow the same narrative. And I think that's what will help have the market build a little bit of confidence in what we're doing, is, showing this is our strategy and our roadmap, and we're executing on it, and being able to take these drill programs that are not, multi-million-dollar drill programs, but several 100,000 up to maybe 1 million drill programs, and put compliant pounds on the ground just with that. And again, that's sort of a cost per compliant pound that is just very difficult to achieve with any other strategy or a greenfield project, and something that we want to continue to execute on.
Yeah. Drew, how are you approaching sustainable development and community relations, particularly with the local stakeholders like the rancher with the surface access agreement?
Yeah, again, that's important, and part of our strategy is focusing on ISR amenable projects. We think, that's the way forward for mining, and hopefully we can continue to find projects that allow more uranium pounds to be mined that way. It's a, very low surface impact way to get a resource out of the ground, and yeah, we've been now working with a few different ranchers on our projects to be able to have access rights to be able to work with them because they have grazing rights on some areas that we have the mineral rights on. So it's always an ebb and flow, and I think it's realizing that we can both work together and both be better off for having worked together. The opportunity here to be able to utilize the mineral resource of the ground. I mean, it's also an area that is, got quite a robust oil and gas industry as well. So, it's not new to see mineral extraction in this area. And, there is a, small population in Wyoming, but it's one that, is very cognizant of the land, and it's a lot of people that live off the land, whether that's grazing and other things like that. So it is important to have good relationships, and that's something we're continuing to work on and continuing to build. I'm here in Casper, Wyoming right now, actually, for some meetings and a conference. So again, getting to know everybody. We are, a newer player in the area, and again, just putting best foot forward as we continue to take these steps, and we think that will serve us well.
Sure. Drew, you worked in the Athabasca Basin, so you are now working in Wyoming. Can you draw some parallels between those two jurisdictions?
Yeah, I mean, again, different mineral styles. Athabasca, obviously, going after the very big, very rich, high-grade deposits. What we're doing now in Wyoming, a little bit different strategy with, lower grade, but maybe more economic and more proven out, less discovery risk in it. But again, it's an area where there's a lot of uranium exploration in northern Saskatchewan. There's a lot of uranium exploration happening in Wyoming as well. So both areas, are supportive of the industry, and I think that's important to be in an area where the state or the province that you're working in is willing to work with you and support the industry that you're in, because it's a tough business, and you need to have tailwinds. You need to have, market conditions that are a tailwind. You need to have, the permitting structures and the people in government, be a tailwind, because if it's, wind in your face, that's going to make it that much more difficult to move forward and get things done in a timely manner. And as a junior public company, as everybody knows, time is money. If projects are delayed, 6 months or a year, that can cause a lot of trouble. So being in a jurisdiction like this, it's great, and it's not done by mistake. Obviously, we're here for a reason, and it was great to see that in Saskatchewan, and now seeing that same thing here in Wyoming.
Okay, Drew, a final question, news flow from the company. What can investors expect, let's say, in the next 2 months?
Yeah, so again, now that we've closed on Duck Creek, we're going to be busy. We've been working through that data to set up the most efficient drill program. So we'll be applying for permitting soon. That news should be able to cross the wires in the next little bit. An exciting step for us, especially given how quickly we were able to move on Shirley Central. It'll be keeping the market abreast as we get through that program, and hopefully be able to announce the receipt of that drill permit and allow us to take the next steps. We'll also be continuing to look at other projects in our pipeline that we have that we're evaluating right now. And then we'll also be looking to get ready to get out and mobilize for Shirley Central. Again, we do have a 22-hole permit in hand there, and plans that we think are going to add a lot of value for our shareholders there as well. So lots of good steps that we have, and it'll be an exciting sort of move into the fall period, and especially if we think we can get pounds into the compliant category through the beginning of next year. So we're going to continue to stay busy, and again, it'll be a pretty steady news flow from us, but excited to be doing the work we're doing.
Yeah, and I wish you luck with that. That was Drew Zimmerman, president for Noble Plains Uranium. Drew, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on again. It's always great to catch up and update everybody.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition